Oh, yeah.
You gotta come back here now.
I just have to hit the button. Whenever you're ready.
I did it right.
Yeah.
I was not.
I'll call the meeting to order. Is microphones okay?
Yeah, they're good.
Just leave them in there.
Just leave them?
Yeah.
You're
Don't
okay.
have to move them around in here?
Nope.
This is the October 7, 2014 meeting of the Fairfield Town Plan and Zoning Commission. First item on the agenda is Bills and Communications meeting minutes from September 30, 2014. I have a motion.
Move to approve.
Motion approved by Commissioner Jacobson,
I'll second it.
second by Commissioner Alessi. Everybody have a chance to take a look at those? Anybody have any questions, comments, changes? Okay. We're all voting on this? Right?
Yep.
Okay.
I wasn't present for the meeting, so I'm not going to vote on the minutes.
Did you listen to the tapes from September 30?
Yes. So I can still vote on the
Yeah.
minutes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Aye. Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? The item, minutes are carried unanimously. Next item is old business, 5151 Park Avenue, special exception application of Sacred Heart University for a new residence hall. It's in R3 zone. Public hearing 8/26/2014, expires 10/30/2014.
Mr. Chairman, let me give you a brief overview of what was presented to you at the public hearing. As you mentioned, that the university, a proposed university resident hall would be located in the northeast corner of the main campus, bordering Jefferson Street on the north and Park Avenue on the east. The proposed building would be a three-story U-shaped structure. The first floor of the proposed residence hall includes several common areas that would include a lobby, lounge, fitness room, activity rooms, and office, as well as student bedrooms. The second floor and third floor of the building are virtually the same. They're composed, again, of student bedrooms, several small support areas, such as trash and recycling areas, and laundry. The proposed building will have a total area of approximately 78,280 square feet, distributed over the three stories. The building plaza that's within the building area will serve several purposes, including, as described at the hearing, a bioswale system of a stormwater cleansing feature, as well as underground storage. The residence hall construction materials, as you remember, would basically be brick veneer, copper veneer, exterior wall features, as well as copper gutters, copper standing seam roofing. The plan includes extensive landscaping as detailed on the planting plan. I'll get in a little bit, describe what some of the intent of that landscaping was for. The proposal is to construct the total number of beds would be 216. The building will be located, as I mentioned, in the southwest corner. The dormitory will replace existing parking, which will be shifted and relocated, as was reported at the hearing, other locations on the campus and off campus. The access to the main campus will remain unchanged and will continue to use a signalized main entrance drive to the campus from Park Avenue and exit only from the campus to Jefferson Street. As part of the other transportation improvements of the university, the intersection of Park Avenue at Jefferson Street and Old Town Road will be improved with a new traffic signal, new crosswalks, sidewalks, and pedestrian control. As part of the landscaping plan, if you remember, one of the intents of that was to help direct the pedestrian activity and access through the campus toward this improved intersection. And that, again, was highlighted as part of the landscaping plan. Also reported that the existing radio building was part of an application to be shifted and expanded on the main campus from its present location near Jefferson Street to a new location southeast corner of the campus adjacent to Park Avenue. That was approved some other time before, and in that area there will be expanded parking for the university use. Again, as I mentioned, as part of the development of Residence Hall, northeast corner of the main parking area will be modified and eliminated as necessary. The internal layout will remain unchanged, and this gets to back to what I was mentioning to you before about the reported landscaping for most of the campus. However, the immediate vicinity of the proposed building and layout will be modified. Pedestrian linkages will be enhanced, and significant level of landscaping will be introduced in this portion of the campus to do that. The pedestrian linkage will continue from the main campus through the dormitory area, connect to the signalized intersection of Park Avenue and Jefferson Street. This pedestrian linkage will continue across Jefferson Street to the new, which is being constructed right now, School of Business Communication, Media Studies building. All right, this use is a permitted use in this zone, subject to securing a special exception under Section 27. There are certain findings that you need to review when you're determining your action on this application, and I will outline them for you right now. It's in Section 27.4. First of all, you need to determine the location, type, character, size, and use of the building shall be in harmony and conform with the appropriate and orderly development of the town in this neighborhood, which essentially is the university block on that corner. Also, the nature and location of the building, use of the buildings or structure shall be such as to have adequate access for fire protection. That was discussed with you at the hearing. The street serving the proposed use shall be adequate to carry prospective traffic. Provisions shall be made for entering and leaving the property without creating undue hazards for traffic congestion and adequate off-street parking. Again, as I outlined before, those types of issues were discussed for you. A landscaping plan shall be provided, which it has been as per our Section 25.7.6. And finally, the proposed use shall be in conformity with the master plan of the town of Fairfield. And as was reported to you during the hearing, the university use in this area is identified and recommended to be maintained for this portion of town. Now, Mr. Chairman, was pretty much a quick overview of what was presented at the hearing. And of course, that Section 27.4 are the findings that you need to review in your action.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Kennelly,
Second.
second by Commissioner Jacobson. Commissioner Kennelly?
Thanks very much, Mr. Chairman. My sense is that, as was described by the Director of Planning, we have here an application that conforms to the master plan, meets the test for a special permit, and as someone who's a Stratfield dweller, lower Stratfield admittedly, I'm very sensitive to development in this area. I'm concerned about traffic. I've voted in the past against projects that I viewed as concerning to that neighborhood in terms of bringing more cars to the area. So I listened with care to neighborhood concerns. That said, this is a case where a residence hall like this puts students on campus. It gets them out of cars to enter the campus. In fact, and in my view, that is long-term a benefit, significant benefit to the surrounding area and the residents there who are often very concerned about traffic and traffic flow in the area. Beyond that, I think that anything we can do from a planning perspective to strengthen Sacred Heart's presence in the community in a way that doesn't impact negatively the community there is a benefit. And it's part of what we see highlighted in our master plan, that is to try to develop, have targets and goals for uses and then to support those. Overall, the design, and I'll let others if they have comment about it, that to me the design was attractive. The design was in keeping with the the new construction that's underway with the communication building. And finally, I do think that the landscaping plan that was provided that's going to funnel the students to the pedestrian crossway does seem like a fairly effective way. I mean, students are going to do what they're going to do, but the way it was designed, and I have walked that campus, is such that pretty much you don't benefit very much from trying to cut through hedges and all on that campus. You're better off just kind of following the pathways that are there. And for the most part, if you do walk the campus, you don't find a lot of cut-throughs. You find that most of the kids do use it because they've developed fairly efficient routes. So that's it. I support the project.
Thank you. Commissioner Leslie? Commissioner Jacobson, your motion.
She seconded, yeah.
Go ahead.
I agree with the comments of Commissioner Kennelly. I think the application meets the rules for a special exception, and I will support it. Thank you.
Commissioner Leslie?
I agree also with the application. I would just ask my fellow commissioner if he might amend his motion to have two conditions, or one condition actually, which would be, as discussed during the hearing, a 6-foot wide sidewalk along Park Avenue from the guard booth to the corner.
Right.
and from the corner of Park and Jefferson to the end of their property line on Jefferson Street. That would be the only condition I would have, 6 foot wide. So.
Well, I'll accept both of those. I'll leave it to the seconder.
Okay.
Commissioner Jacobs.
I'll accept it.
As well.
Okay. Motion's been amended by Commissioner Kennelly and seconded by Commissioner Jacobson.
Mr. Dunn.
Good?
Good. Yeah.
All right. Anybody else?
Yeah, quickly, I thought this was an excellent application. It's an attractive building, and the spot is very important because it's actually the entrance to campus, which will be a lot better. I mean, Sacred Heart's evolved a lot since it was built in the 60s as a commuter school, and they really don't have that, that feeling
Yeah.
of entering a campus. So I think this will be much better than having the parking lot near the library type entrance. There's also the entrance to Fairfield for people coming off the Parkway, or just coming from the north down Park Avenue. So I think it's very important to enhance that the appearance and the vista that people get when they're coming in. So I'll support it, as I appreciate Mr. Alessi's comments. Pedestrian safety is always of the utmost importance, and I'll always support sidewalks. And then agreeing with Mr. Kennelly, it's good. It's putting students on campus. Wow. I would envision less commuting to this school with additional dormitories right on campus. So I see this as an excellent application, and I'll support it.
I think it's an excellent application. I think the building is very pretty, and I think it's an appropriate use for a special exemption. And if it gets fewer student rentals in the area, that's for good. So I
Very
approve
good.
it.
Well, I also agree with the comments, and particularly the sidewalks. I mean, that was something that came out during the hearing, I think, to everyone's benefit, so I won't belabor the points, but it's a good application. It'll be good for Fairfield. All right. We ready to vote? All right. Motion's been made with conditions, seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? The item carries unanimously. Next item on our agenda is 256 Spruce Street, application of attorney David Quattrella, trustee, to amend the zoning map to establish a design commercial district on land presently zoned Residence B. Public hearing 8/12/2014, expires 10/16/2014.
All right, Mr. Chairman, again, I'll briefly go over what was presented at the hearing. The parcel is approximately 7,038 square feet in size and presently is zoned residential B. The parcel abuts property zoned design commercial district located at 3355 Post Road and 3377 Post Road. The intent is to change, as the Chairman has mentioned, the intent is to change the zone to design commercial district and to to incorporate approximately one half of that land area at 256 Spruce Street into the adjacent property located at 3377 Post Road, which is that Tivoli restaurant retail complex, and the remaining one half of the land area being added to the property located at 3355 Post Road. That's the Subway Dunkin' Donuts retail complex. It is the intent of the applicant to improve the subject parcel with 18 parking spaces to be used on a shared basis in conjunction with the adjacent commercial retail uses, as I mentioned, at 3355 and 3377 Post Road. The property at 280 Spruce Street was itself approved for a zone change by the board during 2004. Again, that was to allow the property for parking in conjunction with the permitted retail uses, as I mentioned, at the Post Road Shopping Center, the Tabuli complex. And approval of the zone change and the granting of a certificate of zoning compliance will provide provisions for additional off-street parking, commercial parking in conjunction with the adjacent commercial uses and buildings. The shopping centers are prior non-conforming, as described at the hearing, as to the minimum number of parking spaces required. In addition, to assisting the applicant in providing off-street parking, it would create the 18 additional off-street parking spaces, would also help eliminate the need for off-street parking by patrons and employees of these commercial building uses on Spruce Street, which was described as an issue at the hearing. The applicant's intention is to extend the existing privacy fence, which screens 280 Spruce Street from the residential dwellings, on the southwest side of Spruce Street to fence in and also screen the subject parcel, and to leave in place and extend the fill in the boxwood hedges which presently exist in front of 256 Spruce Street. In addition, there would be no driveway or curb cut on Spruce Street, no ingress or egress by automobiles at the retail stores on the post road would be permitted or allowed to or from Spruce Street. With respect to the adding an additional 7,300 square feet of land to the existing shopping center on Post Road, will not allow, and there was a description, overview with the commission, for construction of additional buildings or additions to the existing buildings located at the shopping center as a matter of right. The property is not capable of supporting additional building area and rental space given the size and odd shape of the property, as you saw at the hearing, and the need to retain the existing drive-through for the site. Now, again, the procedure here is a two-fold application procedure. One is, and I'll outline these for you, you first of all want to review the findings required for acting on a zone change request. And then the second part of this, the standards for zoning compliance approval for off-street parking, is that it is a permitted use in the DDC, the Design Commercial District, as per section 12.4.21, and shall be provided in accordance with the design standards, as long as it's provided in accordance with the design standards of section 28. The way it was outlined for the commission is basically was described as what you are acting on and what you are not acting on. What you are acting on here is to establish an additional parking for existing commercial uses and to help alleviate the need for off-site parking. What you are not acting on is an expansion of the existing commercial uses, as already been described, would not be permitted, and that there is no legal precedent for additional commercial zone expansion if this zone change was to be approved. There was some discussion about precedent and expansion of the commercial zoning. There is no legal precedent for that. So just as outlined at the hearing, just so you understand what you're voting for here, you are voting for the zone change and the establishment of the 18 space parking area. Again, you're not voting for expansion because you can't, any of the existing commercial uses, and the expansion of any additional zone changes would require a case-by-case, site-specific application to this board. So with that said, the first portion of this, and I'll outline the findings for the zone change, would be as follows. Number one, and you've heard all these before, is first of all, there has to be some consistency with the plan of conservation development. There were discussion about certain sections in our plan that are consistent and with and do address this type of application. Number two, time, experience, and reasonable planning for contemporary or future conditions should indicate the need for the proposed zone change. Number three, it has been demonstrated that the proposed zone change is warranted and would serve the general health, welfare, and safety of the town. Four, the proposed zone change promotes a level would promote a level of development that would serve to protect property values in the neighborhood and enhance the community area. And the proposed zone change would not permit a level of development that would increase undue traffic congestions. Now, Mr. Chairman, is an outline not only of what was presented at the hearing, but an outline of the findings you need to review in acting on this application.
Those, the last five that you just mentioned were the zone change requirements. Can you just...
Yeah, for the establishment, basically with that, the application's for the establishment of a 18-space parking area. As I mentioned to you, the section, a parking lot is, parking is a permitted use in the zone, subject to that the 12.4.21, but that it also shall be provided in accordance with the standards that are outlined in section 28. Essentially, the size of the parking areas, the access widths, and the screening, which all were outlined on your site plan, and it was the description of the applicant anyway that they felt that they met those requirements. There was nothing presented at the hearing that indicated differently, that in fact, the orientation of the proposed 18 spaces is consistent with our Section 28 requirements for parking.
For parks, right, okay. Thank you. So in terms of commissioners and voting, we have a few members absent tonight. Let's just review the roll and make sure that we've all listened to tapes if we've needed to. Okay, so,
Yeah, I mean, the people that have listed should be able to act on this are Wagner, Alessi, Barretts, Jacobs, and Coleman.
okay. And in terms of numbers, we need
4.
4 out of 6 to pass
That's correct.
the zone change.
That's correct.
And 4 out of 6 also to adopt
The zoning plans.
the compliance application. Correct?
There's only 5
There's only 5 of us, so we need 4 out of 5.
It would be 4 out of 5 for the
4 out
zone
of
change,
5
and
for
it would
the zone.
be 3 out of 5 for this. for
Sorry,
the
right, I was counting
compliance.
6. Meg's
Oh,
not here.
Francis is not here.
She's
Right,
not
right,
here yet,
sorry, my
right.
fault. Yeah.
Now, would she be on?
Yes,
She would be,
yes, she would.
and she's due to arrive in about 1 minute.
Yeah, she mentioned sometime around 8 o'clock.
Yeah. So,
You want to move, you want to wait? Do you want to push it back? Give her a chance to be here?
should we just, I'll entertain a motion if someone wants to
Put it on the table
pursue that.
temporarily, can we do that?
Well, it would be-
It would be 6.
I'm just saying, do you want to do this? Fair. No, I can't do it because I'm not on the item.
Are you on it?
I'm not on it.
Oh, you're
I
not
didn't-
on it.
It's where there wasn't
Oh.
a
Right,
TV.
I didn't realize that, I was
Yeah.
counting 6 because.
Yeah, I'm sorry, yeah,
Right,
sorry.
right.
It's on the,
Yeah, so, okay, well, we have the numbers to go forward.
Yes, you would need 4 for the
No.
zone change and 3 for the
No,
compliance.
no motion being made to table for Commissioner Francis. then?
Go ahead.
All right, is there a motion on the item?
I'll move to approve it for, yes.
Motion to approve by
I'll
Commissioner
second
Barrett.
it.
Second by Commissioner Coleman. Commissioner Barrett, would you like to lead the way?
Yeah, I guess. I wish I could lead the way a little better today, and I'm sorry that there's 5 of us here, but I'm hoping to hear from all of you as well. I don't really have that much to lead, because I'm not sure about this application. After 4 weeks, I'm still not sure, 5 weeks. When it comes to changing a commercial zone to a residential zone, I'm usually very hesitant. In this area, I would also be very hesitant. The only reason I could see doing it here is the applicant made a,
You mean changing a
Changing the
a
commercial to
residential to a commercial?
I'm sorry, that's wrong. Yeah, I should not be. Yeah, changing a residential to commercial is discouraged. The master plan discourages changing residential to commercial. So the only reason to do it, I think, is, and it particularly states it discourages encroachment of commercial zones into residential. So we have to ask is this an encroachment? The applicant maintains that there's a need for additional off-street parking. If the answer to that appears to be yes, then what would make this application, beneficial perhaps is if the removal of cars from the street into a parking lot actually was less of an encroachment than the situation they have now. I mean, they have a lot that's not developed, it's vacant, and if you put parking there and seal it off from the post road, is that actually going to be more beneficial to the residents on Spruce Street? So I think that's the key question to ask. Normally, I would say no, but I'm willing to consider approving this if it's really established that it's actually less of encroachment to have this as a commercial zone with the on-street parking than it is today. We heard from residents. We heard from residents on South Spruce Street. There's a difference. The people that live on North Spruce Street, a lot of it already is commercial properties. The one neighbor across the street, who I recall from the last time we had a rezoning, actually was supportive of this. There was no neighbors on that section of Spruce Street opposed to it. So I think that's the key question to answer is this an encroachment into a residential zone, or does it actually improve the situation in the residential stroll with respect to on-street parking.
Commissioner Coleman?
I'm in favor of this application. Like Commissioner Bratz, I struggled a little bit because of the conflict with the development plan, and I heard the sensitivities of the Spruce Street Historical District Association, but those neighbors aren't on that block, and the only owner who is on that block felt strongly that this would help the character of the block rather than hurt it. I think that the applicant made a good accommodation as far as the visual impact of it, and I think that that for the people who live on the block, to be in favor of it means it's going to make that portion of Spruce Street a more desirable place to live rather than a less desirable place. So I would vote to approve it.
Mr. Jacobs?
I visited the site twice, and I thought a great deal about it. I cannot support this application. I'm just very worried about encroaching, commercial development encroaching on residential development. I realize they may need the parking, but I just think it sets a really bad precedent. So I'll be voting against this application.
Okay. Welcome to Commissioner Francis.
Just in time.
You missed the introduction, and you are on this matter. This is the Spruce Street application. Do you want a brief review?
Behind Duncan and
Correct.
that lot, that one lot.
Correct.
I visited again the other day. Are any of the 3 mature trees being removed?
Question for
I didn't have
staff.
a question.
Are any of the 3 mature trees being removed?
The only, and I don't know that there are any, I don't believe, if the trees you're talking about,
They're right on the edge of the street.
no, the only area that was going to be constructed is the vacant area where the home was. The street trees are to remain, and as, you missed the overview, but also the expansion of the current landscaping that exists for the other adjacent parking area is going to be extended toward this area also. So the answer to your question is no.
Then secondly, it looked fully fenced to me. I was wondering how the employees are getting through.
How the employees are getting through where?
Isn't this for employee parking, to get them off the street?
Yeah.
Well, the intention, I think, was presented as for employee parking, but my understanding from our discussions was that we cannot require that the spaces be allocated for employee parking.
No, but to answer your question, your
looked
question is
all
how
fenced.
they access the proposed parking area?
Their jobs, once they park. How do they get
Yeah, I
into
mean, they
those
would just
buildings?
walk, if you remember the site plan, you would be able to walk out of that, the new 18 space parking area is adjacent and connected, actually be shared with both the Tabuli retail complex and also the Dunkin' Donuts.
Right.
And so
It's
they would
not all,
just,
that white fence wasn't all.
no, it
Along
wouldn't
Spruce Street.
completely enclose the parking area. It would only be extended on the Spruce Street side for screening.
And that would continue along Spruce Street.
Right.
Yeah.
And it would then return to the commercial area.
Yes.
And there's no ingress or egress on
Spruce Street.
Spruce Street.
Does he need a zoning change to pave a parking lot, pave a lot?
He needs, I can answer that. He needs the zoning changed because the parking area is for commercial use. You can't park commercial cars or for commercial use in a residential zone. So that's why that 7,000 square foot lot to be permitted for the 18 commercial parking spaces would have to be a commercial zone. It would be not permitted to park there for commercial purposes at this point.
And is he paving it or putting in the environmentally sensitive pavers?
I think at this point, there's being paved, but there's drainage If you remember the discussion with some detention.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll talk.
Commissioner Wilson?
No, I went back and forth on this one as well, too. It's not so much turning residential into commercial that bothers me about this application. We're turning residential into commercial for a parking lot. It's not like we're taking an eyesore in town and we're going to develop it to make it look, more aesthetic or a benefit to the town or anything like that. To me, just to change a residential to a commercial for a parking lot, I don't think would warrant a zone change. If there's a different application and we're going to see a building there or something like this, then I wouldn't have a problem. But for a parking lot, I don't recommend. I'm going to vote no on this.
Did you have a response, or you wanted me to go?
No, wasn't strongly I wanted to hear from my fellow commissioners. Like I said, I'm on the fence on this one, so I can appreciate your comments.
Yeah, I drive through Spruce Street almost every day, if not multiple times a day. It bothers me to no end to think that we're going to rezone a residential parcel so that we can pave a parking lot. It just strikes me as wrong. I don't think it's consistent with the master plan. I don't think that it is warranted. The thing I'm struggling with the most is that we have a neighbor who lives across the street that presented a letter saying that he's in favor of it. And that, to your point, Commissioner Barretts, there was evidence of need for additional parking, but the need is, I think, primarily driven by the fact that it's a pre-existing nonconformity, and that, before we were regulating size and density in parking areas, these buildings were allowed to be constructed, and now there is congestion from time to time. I do see your point. If it does actually reduce the encroachment in the residential area by the commercial, because it's taking those cars that would otherwise be parked on the street and putting them in a parking lot, that might provide some benefit. But I don't see how this is going to protect property values. One of the findings that we have to make. I'm really struggling with it. I really am. To Commissioner Alessi's point, we're not rezoning for a new commercial purpose that's going to provide, additional commercial commerce to the town. And in that way, it is an encroachment significantly into the residential zone, because it's taking what would be a residential parcel and making it commercial. So I do have a hard time, I really do. And I don't understand the sentiment in favor. And I'm willing to listen, but I don't see it. And I haven't heard anything that would really change my mind.
Well, she feels that way. It's okay.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not suggesting that your feeling is wrong.
Oh, no, I'm not
I'm
taking it
just
that
saying,
way.
I haven't heard anything, this is significant.
Compelling.
Yeah, compelling. I mean, to change our zones, especially in, these kinds of areas. We're not talking about.
Well, if I may, I don't want to cut you off. I was
Please.
going to say, if we were presented with an application, I think, where all these buildings were somehow redesigned, and a new building was being brought in, and we needed that back lot, I guess, for parking, because, a whole new commercial center was going up, I can understand that. But just to take a residential lot in the back for a parking lot, it's bringing no added value. None. And it sets a precedent, I think, for other applications, for a parking lot, not for a development.
I'm certainly not an advocate for this, so I think you guys have swayed me fine. I mean, I had to talk first, so.
No,
Again, I
no.
see the main advantage, again, this is, you know, a parking lot, still a commercial use, and it was to actually alleviate some on-street congestion. That's the only reason I see voting for it. Also sealed off. And it was done before on another parcel on Spruce Street, which I think did some of that. That was the evidence that was written on 280. But I'm certainly don't want to be an advocate of changing residential to commercial, you know, unless really the findings are really met. Here, I'm not even clear that they are. I mean, we don't have a lot of testimony. We have the, you know, what the applicant wants to do, and we have a letter from one neighbor. So I would be inclined to be opposed to this. I just have to talk first.
The parcels that are next door are residential parcels.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
And then the one next door will be an island.
Yeah.
And so what happens then? What happens then?
The parking lot.
I'm going to continue to swim against the stream on this one. I can't see a residential use ever being put to that piece of land. And we have, you know, we've got a lot of renters on the block, and the one homeowner of the block is saying, I'm dying from the traffic overflow on my block, and this would alleviate it. So I think, given the history of how we got to it, doesn't really matter. What we have right now is a situation in which there is no good use for that land as a residential property. You know, it's going to be backing up onto a strip mall. And I think that if we can make the block less congested and more family-friendly by getting traffic off of it, that's the best use of that piece of land.
And then what happens to the residential parcel that's next to it?
Right.
I think that's the issue.
I think that would be the next vote.
I mean, there is something to be said for the other piece of the master plan, which calls for, you know, fixing certain issues that were created when the zones were aligned, and there being some aspect of, you know, historical zones that need to be adjusted. But there's no argument here for that.
I think that the needs of this particular block trump the generalized guidelines contained in the master plan. I wouldn't take the master plan to override this.
Anyone else? Commissioner Barrett? Anyone else? We ready to vote? Okay. The motion on the table is to approve. So a vote in the affirmative would be, we did not move to consolidate these.
You can.
Can't.
You have to vote on one. Yeah.
Got to vote on them individually.
Yeah.
So the
Different
first
standards.
application was for the zone change. So that's on B 256 Drew. So that's the one I read as the item.
That's the one we're
Right.
voting on now.
Yeah. So the motion on the table is to approve the zone change. Been seconded. A vote in the affirmative changes the zone. A vote in the negative denies the application. Okay? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those against?
Nay, nay.
The item fails.
Yeah, and for the second portion of this, you would just need to make a motion that the
Well,
use is
let
not
me
permitted.
call the item.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Next item on the agenda is 256 Spruce Street, zoning compliance application of Attorney David Quattrella, trustee for expanded off-street parking, public hearing 8/12/2014, expires 10/16/2014.
Yeah, the only comment I have is that the proposed application is not permitted in the residential zone.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move to deny this application.
Motion to deny by Commissioner Barrett.
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Alessi. So, Commissioner Barretts, if you have
That's
anything?
not a permitted use.
Yeah, and so with the denial of the prior item, it really does not have a foundation for passage. Does anybody else have any other comments? Okay, we ready to vote?
Yep.
All in favor of the motion to deny signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The item is denied unanimously. Next item is 172 John Street.
I'm not real.
Application of 927 Group LLC to establish a design commercial district on land presently zoned Residence B. Public hearing 8/12/2014 and 8/26/2014 expires 10/30/2014.
Okay, maybe you want to do this first, just to confirm who is voting on this?
Yeah, I was going to do that after your intro, but
Okay.
I'm happy to do it now.
It's yours prerogative.
Hurry up.
No, I'm not getting it, but it's okay.
The only reason why I mentioned that is there was some confusion about how the dates are next to certain commission members' names. I just want you to know that the dates, when we have multiple hearings, which we had 2 on this, the dates that are shown next to, in particular, Mr. Canale's name, Wagner, and Coleman, those are the dates that you were attended.
Right.
You did attend. So if you were to act on this, for instance, with Wagner and Coleman, you'd have to confirm that you reviewed the 8/26 information, and with Mr. Canale, you'd have to confirm that you reviewed the 8/12 information. That was the only reason why I wanted to, because there was some confusion about the
Right.
dates.
And we do need to take roll also because Commissioner Coleman, while present, did not review the 8/26 tape.
Right.
Right. So we will need to go through that to make it clear for the record.
Okay,
Okay?
all right. Again, we'll, just to give you an outline of what was presented at the hearing, the subject property is located at 172 John Street. It is on the north side of the road, approximately 81 feet east of Spruce Street. The railroad is across the street, and the Southport Station is close by. The property is 23,050 square feet. There is an existing house and cottage on the property. There wasn't a cottage. The house was built in 1859, according to tax assessor office records, and also was discussed at the hearing. The existing house is serviced by public water and sewer, public water supply and sanitary sewer, and the property is currently zoned residential B. The plan here is to rezone the property to design commercial district. The main house is currently renovated. Actually, it's gutted as of right now. But the proposal is to convert this existing structure to an office space. The cottage would be demolished and or removed. And then there would be a parking lot also as part of this proposal as described on the site plan that you reviewed. The current Residence B zone was established by a prior owner in 1995 and has reported the hearing of prior to that time the property was a design commercial district. Because of the new proposed impervious area, a stormwater retention system is proposed. Included in this impervious area is the proposed crushed stone parking area directly behind the proposed building, existing building that would basically service 7 parking spaces. And there is also a grass paved parking area for the remaining spaces. Our regulations require, if in fact the commercial use is to be made of this property, that there be a minimum of 20 on-site parking spaces. The construction of the first and second floor, there was a small addition proposed, or actually constructed to this structure. The construction of that first and second floor addition to the rear of the existing building, basically 938 square feet of floor area. The existing building totally comprises of 3,976 square feet of floor area. Therefore, the total floor area would be, is currently 4,914 square feet. It would be used by the owner, as he described, the use of the office space for 8 employees. The internal staff, as reported to you, would be there from 9:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m., Monday through Friday, with the offices being closed on weekends and during normal holidays. As part of the proposal and indicated on the site plan, access to the remainder of the existing driveway would remain the existing driveway located on John Street. However, the existing driveway would be extended to the parking area that I described to you, and that would be in the rear of the subject property behind the existing structure. As part of the improvements to the site, a sidewalk would be constructed along the northerly side of John Street, connecting to the existing sidewalk on the adjacent property, located at the immediate southwest fronting on 10 Spruce Street. Other internal walkways are proposed to connect the expanded parking area at the rear of the building, the proposed expansion of this existing building as outlined on the site plan review. It was also reported to you that on February 6, 2014, the Zoning Board of Appeals unanimously granted a waiver, a variance of Section 12761 with regard to street line setback for the existing house and porch. The variance was required solely due to the fact that the current and historic location of the structure does not comply with regard to the setback standard for the design commercial district. The reason why the ZBA application was made even prior to the zone change application is, as you know, our regulations require simultaneous permit for whenever we have this type of zone change, for the special permit and the zone change application. So they need to do that regardless of what your action would be, or the application itself would have been inconsistent with the zone application that was being requested. Also reported, a certificate of wetland conformance for the proposed work also been approved by the Conservation Department. As part of the proposed site work improvements, there was a detailed planting plan that was prepared and presented to you. All right, again, similar to what you've heard before, this is a two-action sequence. First, and again, I will go over them with you. You need to review and act on the zone change request, and I will again highlight for you the findings that you need to make as far as the zone change application. And then as far as the special permit, the standards for special permit approval are as listed in our section 25.7. These are the kind of findings you would have to review in acting on a special permit. First of all, the use need to be permitted in the zone. All portions of the lot not used for the buildings or the paved driveways, sidewalks, or off-street parking must be suitably landscaped. Again, that's based on your review of the existing landscaping or the plan that was submitted to you. Specification for all the driveways and off-street parking shall be subject to town regulations. That's our section 28 requirements for their design. And the development shall be of such character as to harmonize with the neighborhood, to accomplish a transition in character between areas of unlike character, to protect property values, preserve and enhance the appearance and beauty of the community, and avoid undue traffic congestion. It will and does sound very similar to the types of findings that you would make with a zone change also, which I'll get to in just a second. Again, just to reiterate what the overall application was for, and as described to you, you are acting on the establishment of an office use in an existing structure, reestablishing a commercial zone on a lot that was previously zoned commercial. As have you looked, and as was presented to you, the zone map itself indicates that there's only a small portion of a property that is currently zoned residential that is adjacent to this proposed lot. And as I mentioned to you before, and as represented to you at the hearing, there is no legal precedent to establish any additional zone change for residential to commercial in this area based on your action on this particular application. So with that said, I will again briefly go over the findings for the zone change application. Again, number one, you need to find consistency with the plan of conservation development. There were sections of that were reported to you during the hearing portion of the application. Time, experience, and reasonable planning for contemporary and future conditions indicates the need for the proposed zone change. It has been demonstrated that the zone change is warranted and would serve the general health, welfare, and safety of the town of Fairfield. The proposed zone change would promote a level of development that would serve to protect property values in the neighborhood and enhance the community. And the proposed zone change would not permit a level of development that would increase undue traffic congestion. Mr. Chairman, that's an outline of what was presented to you at the hearing, and an outline of the findings you need to make for both the zone change and the special permit application.
Thank you. So, the first item is the zone change. It's item D on the agenda. So I'll just go through the rule. Wagner, I attended 812, and I did review the files and the tapes for 826. Commissioner Alessi,
Yeah.
you attended both. Commissioner Barretts,
I attended both.
Mr. Jacobson,
Yes, I attended both.
Commissioner Kennelly.
I attended the 826 meeting where the bulk of the presentation was made by the attorney for the applicant, and then the public hearing. I scrubbed to the section that was only a brief section of the applicant's presentation on 812. I would say for the record, I did not, I just noticed that the previous item, I didn't look at the previous item, Spruce Street, because there were already commissioners on, and I had happened to be on the bulk of the 826, so that's why I went back and went to the 812.
Sure.
In
So
this case. In other words, I didn't watch the entire 812. I only scrubbed through to get the chunk of John Fallon's initial presentation that was
Right.
part of 812, because I'd seen so much of the rest in person on the 26th.
Sure. So that's just an explanation for
For
your
why
not
I didn't
voting.
on the previous application.
Right.
Correct, because it
But-
was only. Point is, I saw the initial piece
He-
on
he
812.
counts.
I
He's
count.
confirming that he
Right.
is familiar with...
With the materials presented on 812.
On John Street.
Correct.
Yeah.
On John Street.
That's the end of the day. The
Yes,
answer
that's
is
the end of the
yes.
day, that's it. But just as anybody's like, wait a minute.
Are you in or out?
Yes, I'm here.
All right, very good. Commissioner Coleman, we just confirmed you were not, right? Okay. And Commissioner Francis,
Yes, both.
both, check. All right, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, I
There
believe
was a protest petition. It does meet our criteria for that, so essentially what that requires is for a positive vote on the zone change would require 5 votes.
5 out of 6. Okay. So we are missing a couple of people tonight. As I mentioned in the last application, subject for discussion, if someone would like to make a motion. We did have a request of the applicant's attorney here that we consider deferral until additional commission members were here. If someone wants to make a motion, you're free to do so. No?
Yes.
Okay. I'll make a motion for discussion purposes, Mr. Chairman, to approve the application.
Motion to approve made by Commissioner Kennelly,
I'll second it.
second by Commissioner Barretts.
Well,
Commissioner Kennelly?
yeah, I can leave it, thanks. Okay, so let's begin with what's very good about this application. First off, I think that the applicants have taken, anyone who saw the building in its previous condition or looked at the photographs that were presented can see that the applicants have done a great deal of time and effort, a great deal of work into the structure. There was a discussion about load factors on the floors. Rather than 40 pounds per square foot, 50 pounds per square foot were put in as part of this effort to see that the structure that they were restoring was going to be one that could be used as, as an office rather than just as a residence. The business that's going in there is an attractive one, but again, that's not something that ultimately we can consider because we're going to be changing a zone. The zone lives as opposed to the use. But I will say that the use presented, one in which folks get off the train and some of them will walk and come to the office, and others will telecommute. That's an attractive thing. That mix of a site for telecommunication, telecommutation, and also folks using mass transit. So those are good things. But that said, I would be opposed to this if we, do indeed take a vote tonight. I would
The
be
motion's been made.
Okay, so, amendment could table if people have concerns about it.
Certainly
Yeah.
someone
Yeah, I'm
could
saying
come
there are
in with
concerns.
another, with a different
Right,
motion
right, yeah.
and alter that, but,
Sure.
but, I opened it to the floor for a motion, and the motion was made to take action on the item. That's what's before us.
Well, so I'll let that, let me just move on and say simply, my concerns, however, and why I do not believe I'll be supporting this application are the following. First, as we just discussed in the previous application, I do also have concerns about a change of zone that moves the property from residence to commercial, especially in an area that is already, very sensitive to potential changes born of commercial development. From a personal standpoint, I went down, my children are involved with Wakeman with basketball, and so I visited the area on the weekend. I walked John Street, and initially it seemed relatively quiet, but then I had the opportunity to be there in the morning, and I will say that some of the issues that were raised by neighbors about how the street is much more troublesome in terms of people's behavior, getting to the station and all the rest, that seemed to be borne out, so that's a concern. This property was reversed in terms of what it was from a commercial property to a residential, was changed from a residential property to a commercial property to a residential property 20 years ago by the owner. And I look at this and don't know that now that we would then want to, unless there's a significant reason, want to do a reversal now 20 years later. It has been established as residential. The surrounding community viewed it as such, understood it as such. Then finally, I look at this broadly with my planning hat on. Southport, unsurprisingly, as our national economy and local economy begins to recover, is going to be one of the first places in Fairfield to see the beginnings of redevelopment. And I think we as commissioners have to be very careful. It's a sort of a mini crossroads we're beginning to see in Southport. We've had a number of contentious hearings already about residential development this summer. We're going to have other ones about commercial development. We're going to have other decisions to make about additional commercial developments. When I look at this site, I see a neighborhood that is concerned that the mix of residential and commercial will slide too far in the direction that they are uncomfortable with. I see already an environment where I don't think that creating a zone change that, while today seems fairly commuter-friendly, but doesn't necessarily have to stay that way, is wise. So for those reasons primarily, I'm uncomfortable with making the change, and I would vote to oppose this application.
Thank you.
You want me to talk next, or? We don't have to go in that order.
No, you don't.
No, but you want me to go? I
But
will go if you want me
if
to.
you would like to.
Yeah, as Mr. Devanchik said, the date of the zone change to Residence B was 1995. Now, we can't readily determine why certain things happened. We just need to evaluate the facts before us. None of us were here in 1995, and even if we were, it's a long time ago. I've been here since 2003, so really, why something was done, we can't evaluate. The fact is, it was done. But the historical use of this property was always as a residence, regardless of how it was zoned. So the fact that it was for commercial from the beginning of zoning until 1995 and residential since doesn't make that much difference to me, as much as the fact that historical use has always been residential. It's never been used as commercial. There's also, as part of this, is an addition to a building, which we didn't really talk about too much, of 938 square feet. I will say, I thought Mr. Fallon did an excellent job presenting the application. I thought he made a lot of excellent arguments, and the owners have done a lot to make this building attractive. And also that John Street, if we look at the map, has many similar uses, office uses, to what's being proposed. It's mostly designed commercial today, but Southport Green near it is residential, it's mixed use. There were some comments by the neighbors that changing to DCD will allow any commercial use. That's not exactly true. Any change, future change, if we did approve this involving new construction or reconstruction, would require a special permit. Any change that in use, they would need to submit a compliance application that would need to be approved by the commission. So it's not like, well, we approve it now, we approve all commercial uses forever. But the key consideration to me is, what should the future use of this property be? Because it does border on a neighborhood, and we did hear from neighbors. And Mr. Kennelly's familiar with the business. I kind of pushed that aside because Blue Sea was represented as a company with some virtual employees and an internal staff of 8 people. To me, that's not the primary consideration, because we're not approving Blue Sea. They could change, they could expand, they could require more people. They could never move into this space. It could be somebody else. We're asked to approve commercial development with 20 parking spaces, and we ought to be thinking that if we do it, that's what we're approving, that's what we could get. And we have to ask ourselves, is that what we want for this parcel that does border a residential neighborhood? If we allow it today, that's what we're allowing by approving this application. And again, I would say that this is a pretty large building, 4,900 square feet. There's an addition to what's there now, so if you look at it. So I agree with Mr. Kennelly. I thought this was a good application. I thought the owners did good with the property, but I'm not inclined to change it to commercial.
Mr. Francis?
I visited the street several times. The structures seem mostly commercial, very attractive design commercial. Sometimes you had to look for signs that it wasn't a house. But I felt there were very few homes on the street. However, it's a residential property. I have a problem with 20 paved parking spaces. It's a very attractive building. They've done a good job. The presentation was excellent. But I'm not in favor of downgrading zoning, and this abuts a substantial residential zone, and there was a lot of negative testimony from the neighbors in those areas.
Mr. Jacobson?
I did walk the street twice, and it's a lovely neighborhood, and I think it should stay Residence B. I'm not in favor of bringing commercial uses into residential zones, and I will not support this application, and I support the comments of my colleagues.
Well, thank you. Do you want to say something?
Well, I could just say, by the way this is going, I think it would just be a perfect building for an affordable housing project, and I hope whoever owns this, if it does get denied, comes back as an 830G application, because I think the location would be great for affordable housing.
Thank you for all the comments. I really struggle with this one too. I mean, the zone changes are extremely difficult. But I have to say, Mr. Kennelly, you presented a really thoughtful comments from a wider perspective, from a planning standpoint. And Commissioner Barrett's, you did on a micro level, about this building. I spent some time down here. I parked in the driveway. I walked around the back, and I thank the applicants for allowing us the ability to do so. I walked up and down John Street. I walked up and down Spruce Street. And I tried to imagine, what that would be like with 20 cars in the parking lot and people coming and going, and how that would fit in the mix. There's been a lot of talk about whether this property was residential or commercial, and it has historically been used as a residence. That's why it was changed, in my opinion. We have difficulty trying to sort of actually pin that down, but my viewpoint is that it was changed, the zone was changed in '95 to conform with the way that it had been used. There's a residence next door. That parcel is presently zoned commercial, but there is someone that lives in that home. There is a commercial truck that he parks behind. I don't know whether he operates a business out of that home or not. I don't know what the details are on that, but it's clear that that's a residence. The applicants did a phenomenal job renovating this building. I'm not entirely sure, I don't know how to say this. I have an issue with the renovation of this substantial intensity, only then to come before us and say, now that we're done, it should be commercial. That cuts the wrong way with me, all right? And we heard that it's not finished, it's gutted. The applicant said, we can just as easily fit this out for, a multifamily or a residential use. It could be a beautiful home. It would be a beautiful home. It's a big house. So I am sensitive to the neighbors who really articulated themselves well. In some instances, we have lots of comment that is not necessarily dialed into the issues that we have to decide. I thought the residents did an excellent job of commenting on relevant issues that we need to decide. I struggled with the applicant. I think it's a fantastic business.
Yeah.
And if we could condition the approval on it being only 8 employees, 3 of whom will telecommute, and only 5 spaces that could ever be used, maybe I would come out differently on this. But I can't. I can't. Because even the building that's there is not what it's intended to be. It's even going to get bigger. And those 20 spaces, we have to imagine actually being used. So, I don't think that on balance the requisites for a zone change have been shown, and I think that we would really be stretching ourselves to find otherwise. I don't think that the time and experience indicate a need for change. It's been historically a residential parcel. I don't think that there's been a demonstration that the zone change is warranted and benefits the health and safety of the public. My comments, frankly, given that what everybody else has said and the number of votes and things that are required here are probably just, icing on the cake. But given the intensity here, I wanted to at least let people know where I was coming from. Anybody else have any comments? We ready to vote? Okay. The motion on the table is to approve. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All
That's
right.
what
So a vote in the affirmative will change the zone. A vote in the negative will deny the application. Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed?
Nay.
The item is denied unanimously. Next item on our agenda is 172 John Street, special permit application of 927 Group LLC for additions and alterations to establish a commercial use. Public hearing 8/12/2014, 8/26/2014, expires 10/30/2014.
The only comment I have is that the use is not permitted. Mr. Chairman?
And just to go through the votes, we have 6. Wagner, I was on 8/12 and I reviewed 8/26. Alessi?
Yes, present.
Commissioner Barretts?
Yes.
Commissioner Jacobson?
Yes.
Commissioner Kennelly? Same?
Yes.
Thank you. And Commissioner Coleman, you were not, and Commissioner Francis, you were present at both, correct?
Yes.
All right. And votes needed here are 4 out of 6.
Correct.
I make a motion to deny, Mr. Chairman.
Motion been made to deny by Commissioner Alessi,
Second.
second by Commissioner Kennelly. With the denial of the prior item, this is not a permitted use, and therefore there is no predicate for approval of the application. Any other comments? All in favor of the denial signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? The item is denied unanimously.
Sorry.
I'm done. Okay, well,
Hey, we're losing people.
he's leaving temporarily, but
Mr. Kennelly's actually.
I am actually done, because
I'm going to adjourn for
2012. The bonded improvements included drainage, street trees, monuments, bituminous ramp, and site stabilization. 50% of the original $51,510 bond was released on September 21st, 2013. Engineering has reviewed the site and now recommends a release of the remaining amount. All work has been completed to their satisfaction.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, make a motion to approve.
A motion approved by Commissioner Alessi,
Second.
second by Commissioner Jacobson. Any comment, discussion? I'm satisfied the record's been made. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Item carries unanimously. Next item is 155 Woodrow Avenue. Request of Dean Cardamus for 100% release of a $12,754 bond pertaining to subdivision improvements in a B zone. Public hearing 9/30/2014, expires 12/4/2014.
Yes, sir. As reported at the hearing, this two-lot re-subdivision was approved on July 23rd, 2013. The bonded improvements included drainage, concrete curbs and ramps, street trees, monuments, and site stabilization. This has been reviewed by the engineering department and our department, and we both, engineering and us, recommend 100% release. The work has been completed as per the plans and the bonded requirements.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, make a motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Alessi,
Second.
second by Commissioner Francis. And we do have email in the file. Any comments? Record's been made in the file. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? The item carries unanimously. Next item is 386 Commerce Drive, special exception and coastal site plan application of DND Realty LLC for the construction of a new automobile dealership, designed industrial district. Public hearing 9/30/2014, expires 12/4/2014.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I will give you a brief overview of what was presented at the hearing and kind of outline your findings that you would need to review on action of this property. The owner of the property is located at 386 Commerce Drive, is making this application, as the chairman described, for special exception pursuant to Section 27 and a location approval of automobile sales with regard to the construction of the building, which will be a new location of the Fairfield Hyundai. The property is located in the Design Industrial District, and the use is permitted, subject to securing this special exception in accordance with our Section 21.3.1. In December of 2013, the Zoning Board of Appeals granted a variance of Section 21.9 to reduce the required street line setback from 12 to 5 feet with regard to construction of this new building. As noted at the hearing, the new building, as proposed, will actually reduce the existing property line setback nonconforming, in which the present building is located only 2.9 feet from the property line, and the new building has a proposed setback of 5 feet from the property. This parcel contains an existing service garage building and a new car storage lot currently being used. The existing 18,126 square foot building would be removed, and a new 17,890 square foot building would be constructed. The main access to the site would be provided from Commerce Drive, and as reviewed and outlined in the site plan, 104 parking spaces are proposed. Site landscaping was discussed at the meeting, and there was a plan submitted to commission indicating such. The applicant must confirm consistency with the regulations for park area shade tree requirements. A site plan showing the location of all shade trees must be submitted. It was indicated at the hearing that these trees were indicated on the design requirement aspect of the plan, but you will, if you acted on this positively, I would strongly recommend a condition of approval for a revised site plan showing the actual location of those trees, and as being consistent with our shade tree. This requirement for shade tree, as indicated at the hearing, would hold for the patron parking areas, which is approximately, I think, 16 spaces, but not the storage parking area. We've never required shade trees for storage parking for new car sales, and they're not so proposed in this application. The proposed site plan indicates vehicles on display in the street line setback area. Section 13.4 of our regulation states that this type of outside display is only permitted if the commission determines that the nature of the display will not create a traffic hazard, unsightly conditions, or obstruct pedestrian access. A possible sideline setback was discussed, sidewalk, a possible sidewalk, street line sidewalk.
Thank
It's
you.
been a long day.
Yeah.
A possible street line sidewalk was discussed at the hearing. The location of this sidewalk would be problematic. It was discussed at the hearing, and also I just want to reiterate for the commission. The road pavement right-of-way for this side of Commerce Drive was expanded as part of an expansion program that was initiated through state DOT, some state funding in the town of Fairfield, and they basically expanded Commerce Drive some years ago. What that expansion did was extend the paved portion of the right-of-way right to the property line on this side of the road. What it also did, though, and it was paid for by the grant, was to extend a driveway, a sidewalk, the entire length of the improved portion of Commerce Drive. So there is no town-owned 10, 5-foot area. Basically, the property line runs to the paved portion of the road. A sidewalk, the length, as I already mentioned, okay. Talk of adjusting the new building location to provide room for a sidewalk is not possible because of our section 13.12 setback requirements that the maximum setback be no more than 18 feet from the street line. That's basically what we're holding at this point. So what I would
The
recommend...
way it looks on the site plan now is 18 feet?
No, it could not... The 13, yes.
The maximum that the building can be from the property
Is
line
18 feet.
is 18 feet, and that is where it sits on
That's
the map
correct, the
now.
proposal, yeah. All right, so what I would recommend to the commission, and this, if they feel, because this was discussed at the hearing, that permitting display in that area between the building and the fronting road would create not only a pedestrian issue, but or unsightly conditions, but would obstruct not only pedestrian access, but sight line, access sight line, access sight line out of this. Then I would strongly recommend, and you would have a right to do this, to prohibit as a condition any display of automobiles in that area between the building and the street. There would still be area for them to display adjacent to the street, near the parking area, which would not create any kind of sightline issues, of course, and no pedestrian type of access. So
It's a
if,
Devon check.
Yes.
So there is no way to put a sidewalk there.
no, as a matter of fact, there's no way to put a sidewalk on any town property,
Well-
the entire length of Commerce Drive.
If they did
On
put a
that side.
sidewalk, though, on their property,
Yeah. There would be
the
no...
only thing we'd be affecting really is the parking lot in the front, correct?
Yeah, but if you look...
Grants.
Well, the
The
display
grass.
area. Yeah, I would strongly recommend that, again, no other property on that side of the road is going to be able to establish, and the town will never be able to establish a sidewalk on that site because they don't own any property. So what I would recommend is if there's a concern about the display there, as opposed to putting a sidewalk there, which really could not, from a practical standpoint, ever be extended, that you prohibit display in that area and require landscaping and/or,
A revised landscape.
yeah, to indicate, not only to confirm,
Well, what about the new car display area that they have depicted on the site plan?
that's what I'm saying.
That's,
If they were to put,
They would take it out of there.
well, just put a sidewalk there, on it.
But that's on private property.
Well, if that's what they want, and then this way they can put
No,
it
they were only saying that because you you said, you recommended, they said, yeah, sure, we'll do that. I'm just telling you, from a practical standpoint, that sidewalk's going nowhere, because there's no public area for any additional sidewalk on that side of the street.
Well, it would be for their for their
For their
Patrons.
customers to walk.
Well, I mean,
on.
if you wanted, as part, again, eliminating any, again, through a condition of approval, you can eliminate a display there, and as part of your revised landscaping plan, require some type of pedestrian access to the front of the building. Now, I don't know that there's any pedestrian access designed for that portion of the building anyway.
Well, hold on. Now, we rarely do this during your review, but
Yeah.
this is like a working session here.
Well, I just wanted to make sure you understood that, because there seemed to be some confusion about the establishment of the sidewalk. Usually when we require that,
Yeah.
it's on town property.
Understood,
Yeah.
but is there any prohibition on the applicant, on the owner of a commercial parcel, putting a concrete walkway on a portion of their own property
no.
for their own patrons to
No,
walk
absolutely
around?
not, absolutely not.
And if they were to do that,
Yeah.
then they would have the ability to display a car, but also have that walkway for those patrons to traverse.
Again, not to be, I'm not the applicant, but just for my job of the planning director and
Well,
not
that's why we're
wanting to
talking
create
to
any
you.
issues, you put a sidewalk there and also permit display,
Yeah,
I think in my professional opinion, it creates a pedestrian hazard. Because how are we going to regulate where they're going to locate those cars? How are they going to be located so that a pedestrian, first of all, could traverse wherever these displays are going to be to get to wherever they're going to get on the property from this driveway? And secondly, I still believe that there's going to be a line of sight issue if there's cars out in that area in front of the building
Okay.
with people leaving the site.
yeah. So you see it as a safety issue
Oh,
for the
absolutely.
cars being on display at
Yeah.
at the entrance on both sides
Right,
there?
absolutely. I mean, the sidewalk access, sure. I think, again, not to be argued, not that I'm being argumentative.
Not at all.
Just basically to say that to even direct pedestrians
To that
where
end.
there's some type of sidewalk off of Commerce Drive there may be creating an issue, because there's really never going to be any kind of public sidewalk on that side of the street. If you wanted to require as part of your access, which I think is appropriate, if you wanted some type of, again, I don't think they're proposing any pedestrian access to that side of the building, but requiring a pedestrian crosswalk across Commerce Drive from the existing sidewalk, I think that may be appropriate.
What about a condition of approval to come back to us with a revised plan that includes a pedestrian walkway in conjunction with a display area, if that is what the applicant chose to pursue? Would that be possible?
Oh, yeah,
And-
I mean, you can request anything as far as adjusting the site plan in a condition. And I'll say it one more time, I stand by my comment that I think any display in front of that building, regardless of what you do with the sidewalk, is going to create a visual.
Well, the condition
Should
of
we table it?
approval, the condition of approval would have to comply with that concern.
Yeah, and I'm just saying, the area that you have between the paved portion of the road and where they're proposing the building, you put one car there, and I think it may create a line of sight issue with people exiting the property.
So you're saying you have a line of sight issue
Yeah,
with the
yeah.
cars in the front
Yeah.
display? right?
But there's an area that's all the way in the corner of the property that's pretty far away from the
Yeah, absolutely.
entrance.
No, I would not, I'm only talking about the area that fronts the building.
So you want a setback for the car display?
Well,
No, the display of the cars adjacent to the parking area is fine.
Right, I understand
No
that.
cars
But nothing
of
in
the
front.
building.
I'm just saying, anything in front of the building, I think is.
So you're saying from 5 feet, 6 feet from the street line? I mean, how would you word that?
see,
I would say none.
okay.
I would-
You
that's-
know what,
If
we
you
should
wanted to
talk about
permit it, I
this.
would say at a minimum, you want.
We'll talk about this in a second, so you continue, because now I have an idea.
Okay,
Go ahead,
all right.
keep going.
Yeah, I'm almost done. Sorry about that digression there.
No, it was helpful, thank you.
All right. So again, as I mentioned, the sidewalk, the length of the Connors Drive expansion was established on the opposite side. And I also mentioned that section 13.12, setback requires the 18 feet, which they already have, so they can't go back, and they can't push the building back any farther. Again, the findings that you need to review and action on it, other than what we just spoke about, section 27.481, provisions for entering and leaving the premises. Actually, this is very similar to what I was discussing. You'd have to find the provisions for entering and leaving the premises is to be in such a manner that no traffic hazards are created. And 27.483 says no repair work is to be performed out of doors. And also, which is also noted at the hearing, that loading and unloading of vehicles are to be required on the site. They are prohibited. That type of loading and unloading of vehicles are prohibited on Commerce Drive. That concludes my comments.
There was also a condition which the applicant agreed to, that the trees on the legend would actually be
Yes,
employed.
I missed that
because-
before, right, yeah.
Right, because they were not shown on the site plan.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I said design area, but on the legend, yes, they would have to
Okay.
indicate. They did indicate the locations, which would be consistent with the number required. Actually, there were a few more than required by our shade tree. But yes, you would have, I would strongly recommend that condition,
Right.
that
In there-
they submit a revised landscaping plan indicating their location.
And there was also the condition from Public Works on the separation, or no, Laura Pooley on the separation of the discharge.
Yep.
All of that would be standard
Yeah,
conditions.
any condition required by the engineering department would be automatically listed as a condition of this condition,
Okay.
subject to changing that.
Okay, thank you. So, this is special exception. We have 6. We need 4,
You have 5,
5.
and you need 3, actually. Just the majority.
Okay, so let's see. Wagner, I was here for all. Alessi, you were here for all?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Barrett's?
Yep.
Jacobson?
Yes?
And Francis?
Yes.
And I saw the tapes.
You
Oh, you
watched the
did?
tape.
She's on it too. Everybody's on.
Fantastic. So we've got Coleman.
So that'd be 4 votes.
So we have 6 and we need 4 to pass.
Yep.
All right, very good. Could I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve with conditions that a new site plan showing the location of the shade trees in the customer parking lot
And all the conditions that...
and all the conditions
That
that
Joe said.
Yeah.
staff recommended.
I can remember them all.
And that, I guess, no car parking.
That's
Yeah.
my
Within the
recommendation.
18-foot
I swear to-
setback line.
I'll come out and say,
In
that's my
front of the
recommendation.
18-foot setback
That's-
line from Commerce Street,
That's my recommendation. As opposed to any kind of sidewalk.
which still allows parking in front, but 18 feet setback from the property line.
Correct.
Motion's been made with conditions for approval.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Francis. Okay. Discussion? Commissioner Alessi, you made the motion. Would you like?
No, it's a great application. It's changing a rundown piece of property down on the Commerce Drive. It's a permitted use. We have other car dealerships down there. I think they proposed a wonderful-looking building. They're staying in Fairfield. And I think with these conditions, I think it's going to be a very attractive piece of property down there. I welcome it.
Mr. Francis?
How high is the chain link fence?
Mr. Devanshik?
It could be 6 feet. I mean, that would be the maximum.
It doesn't really say, I don't think.
What's your concern? Do you want to make a specific height? I mean,
guess-
we have some security issues to think about.
Yeah, we do. I wonder, does it have one of those slants on the top?
One of the,
Barbed wire?
No,
No.
come on.
they did not, I did not see any indication of any kind of barbed wire.
No.
No. No, if you remember, they talked about there was a question about security, and they didn't feel there was going to be any
Yeah,
kind of
right.
extraordinary
They did say that.
security
Yeah,
issues.
the applicant indicated that.
I think if they had any concerns, they would spend a little money now.
Yeah. But I asked that question specifically.
Right.
Chain link isn't very pretty. Those black wrought iron ones are pretty, more attractive.
But you have a property on that side too, it's not like it's exposed. You have a- you have a
95,
piece of
yeah.
property on that
There's
side.
no
You have a building
residential.
there.
It's all industrial zone.
All on the
industrial.
other side, you have another building.
Oh, doesn't it say chain link fence right across
No.
the
No,
front?
no,
No.
no chain link
No,
fence in
no.
front, no.
No, it's not fully enclosed. Okay. Any comments?
No, I mean, I think it's an excellent application, as Mr. Leslie said. I think the key question before us, and we're really just, what's the safest? We're always thinking about people and walking and what's the safest. During the hearing, we thought putting a sidewalk in front, if they were going to display a car, would be the best thing. Because if you're going to display cars, people are going to want to walk around and look at them.
There's
And we
no
don't want them
doubt.
walking in the street.
Right.
So I agreed at that time that if they could move the building back 6 to 8 feet, which they said they could to accommodate sidewalks, that would be an appropriate condition of approval. Now, Mr. Devanchik is recommending that they don't display them in front of the building, again, for safety concerns, and we want to do what we believe is the safest. So if there's concerns about line of sight, I'd be perhaps interested in prohibiting car display in front of the building.
So, I have a question for Mr. Devanchi.
Yes.
Looking at SP4,
May I approach the bench?
you may. SP4.
Yep.
There is shown on this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 display cars in front
This area is not a problem.
on the, what would be the northeast corner? The northeast corner, not a problem?
I don't see any problem with display there. Frankly, I don't see any, well, I do here. I think this area here is
Right.
problematic because of.
This
it's
one,
simple.
what about this one here, the first one on the northeast corner?
I just think because there's no building there, that the line of sight would be.
This is the line I propose they go behind. This is the
Right.
18-foot line right here.
Yeah.
Or if
So-
you want to continue the setback all the way, that's your prerogative.
Well, that's what I meant, continue,
Yeah, yeah,
no
all
car
right,
parking in
that's
front of the 18.
The same issue
Okay.
could be.
My question for you is, do you perceive the car which is indicated in the southwest, right? That's the southwest
Yep,
corner?
yep.
In the southwest corner, do you perceive that to be a line of sight issue?
Yes. Yeah, I think not only that, but I think, I think.
Why that one and not that one?
Only because the building is here. I think that creates a visual issue, just because when you're coming at the building with the car also, we're here, there's just more area to see down Commerce Drive. It's not going to be the area to see is a lot less because of the location of the building.
I see. And so, you see, this car is okay here?
Yeah, because
Otherwise, it's
you're out
gonna,
front, yeah.
you're gonna be blocking that anyway.
Yeah.
So behind the behind?
Yeah, if you want to hold the setback, that's fine.
If you're behind the setback line, it gives you room for 2 cars to park out front. One there and one on the other side.
Yeah, and that's the motion. So Mr. Devanchik is saying that the 2 cars in the northeast corner at the street line, he does not perceive to be an issue. Now, the issue that I see with that is that there's no pedestrian flow around those display cars. So to your point, if you keep them all behind the 18-foot line, 18 feet from the property line.
You have a car here.
Yeah.
You have a car here, right?
Yeah,
And you have plenty of room in front.
right. And is your part of your motion that they have to submit an updated plan to?
Yes.
Okay. Show that-
Indicate and I would.
Indicate a revised display vehicles in the front and safety for
And
pedestrians.
also, I would
and-
revise landscaping plan, because
Yeah.
Well, I asked for the revise the shade tree plan, yeah.
Yeah.
Shade trees.
Along with the indicating the shade trees, you're going to probably want a little more landscaping in that area, now that it's not going
They'll work
to
around
display.
that.
Right. Right. So, yeah, I mean, I think in the northeast corner, I mean, we could allow one more display car. And this is in discussion now. I mean, do you see, so there would be 1, 2,
Yeah, but then you change the line, you change the site plan.
We got to talk out loud.
well, I'm speaking out loud.
I know, Jerry was.
Jerry, speak up.
Yeah.
Speak up.
Just making
All
sure
right.
these guys get the public.
So I'm looking at.
I'm going to leave it as, I would like to keep it behind the setback line, I think.
Yeah.
Behind the
You're right.
18 foot from the property line with a
Yeah.
revised plan. All right,
It
just
still
like-
gives you display vehicles out front, and it keeps the line of sight safe.
Any other comments? Questions?
I agree. This has to be as clear as possible, because these folks run a car dealership, and if you give them any space, they're geniuses at parking cars. I mean, they drive cars backwards into buildings and park them, so, if it's ambiguous about what they can do, they'll find a way to display their vehicles. So I think it's clear conditions, and asking for a revised plan makes a lot of sense.
And the clear line of 18 feet from the street line,
Yep.
from the property line.
Setback for
is-
any display.
I think it makes sense.
Okay. Anybody else? We ready to vote? Okay. A motion on the table is to approve, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? The item passes unanimously with conditions as made in the motion. Okay. We're not going to have anything to do in 2 weeks.
I'll find something.
Yeah, I'm sure you will. Next item on our agenda is zoning regulation amendments. Application of the Fairfield Housing Authority to amend section 10.3, 10.6.13, 10.7.1, 10.9.3, 10.10, 10.13, 10.17.3, 28.6.1, and 31.2.43. Public hearing 9/30/2014, expires 12/4/2014. Mr. Demonte.
Second. All right. Okay, as just stated by the chairman, the applicant, the Fairfield Housing Authority, is the owner of property located at 15 Pine Tree Court. That property is located on the east side of Pine Tree Lane, and to the west of the town property located adjacent to McKinley School. The property is a total of 3.075 acres, and is presently located in the design residence zone, district zone. The authority currently owns and operates residential housing units on this property, 100% of which are affordable pursuant to the provisions of Section 8-30G of the Connecticut General Statutes, the Affordable Housing Appeals Act. The current proposal involves the demolishing of all existing 10 residential structures and the housing authority's office structure and a shed. These buildings were constructed under a state contract in 1966 and also 1972. And they comprise 18 one-bedroom units and 20 efficiency units, totaling 38 units. The current proposal includes construction of 8 new two-story apartment buildings, all on slab grade, plus a single-story community building which will contain the housing authority office. New parking, grading, and drainage is proposed. The new proposal will provide 50 total units, 40 with one bedroom and 10 with two bedrooms. 36 parking spaces currently exist on the property. 62 spaces are proposed. The site is located adjacent to an existing red maple wooden swamp located mainly on the McKinley School property within the Rooster River watershed, as was described as part of the inland wetland overview review and by the applicant's presentation. The bedroom mix of 1 to 2 bedroom units. Each unit will be constructed of quality materials and which aren't existing right now in the units, including high-efficiency heat and air conditioning and laundry facilities. There will be a building replacing, as I mentioned, the office of the authority, which are currently located on the property, while this building will also contain a common area for use by the residents. The applicant has proposed several revisions to the zoning regulations, which I will overview for you right now, and actually will explain better what's being proposed. Again, this is an application not only for an amendment to the zoning regulations and a special permit, but it is under Section 830G. The reason why I mentioned that is some of these, if not all these proposed amendments, are very specific to the property. In general, usually this is not something that is recommended or even in some instances permitted. However, because of the 830G application process, and as asked at the hearing, whether or not the type of federal, state, and local funding that may be available for this project could be in jeopardy if these amendments were not made. But I'll go over them for you to confirm what they're proposed and to maybe try to show how they are specific to only this site. First of all, there's Section 10.3, permitted uses. Again, it just basically establishes the pine tree development as defined in Section 31.243, which is the new section which I'll get to shall be used as affordable housing development as defined by 830G. So essentially, it lists this use, specific use, as a permitted use in a designed residential district. This particular use, specific use. The next amendment is Section 10.6.3, having to do with the unit density. What they're proposing is an amendment that would permit a unit density of 13 units per acre. Again, the development qualified as the Fairfield Housing Authority pine tree development as defined by 31.243, which is, again, is a new section which specifically identifies this use. So again, that is to increase the unit. In this zone, 5 units per acre would probably be the permitted number currently. Section 10.7.1, which requires major or collector road status when applying for a multi-residential development in our design residence district. The amendment would be the development qualifies as, again, as only a Fairfield Housing Authority pine tree development, would not require to be located adjacent to a major or collector road. The next section, looking to be amended as part of this application, is the number of dwelling units in a building. Currently, 4 dwelling units are permitted in any single building. Section 10.9.3, which is being proposed, would allow not more than 8 dwelling units per single building. Again, qualifying it that it is only for Fairfield Housing Authority pine tree development as defined by Section 31.243, which I will get to sooner or later. The next section has to do with setbacks. Section 10.10.6, again, just very simply reads in developments qualifying as a Fairfield Housing Authority pine tree development as defined by our regulations, or at least the amended portion of the regulations, 15 feet from the side property line and ground story unincluded porch and decks and patios may project more than 8 feet, no more than 8 feet into the required setback. Our current setback requirement, as was represented at the hearing, is 30 feet. 15 is proposed. The next amendment, which has to do with minimum floor area per dwelling, Section 10.13, for developments as defined as a pine tree development. A minimum floor area in square feet of each dwelling unit in one-story building shall be 650 square feet. Somewhat similar to what we permit now, but this specifically outlines this requirement for developments qualifying under the Fairfield Housing Authority plan development. And I believe the next one is section 1017.3, having to do with bedrooms. Again, the amendment to that section would be new developments qualifying as the Fairfield Housing Authority Pine Tree Development, as defined in section 31-243, there shall be a minimum of 1 bedroom per unit. Again, somewhat different than requirement now, although there is in some set-aside development currently under 830G, we also would permit not less than 1 bedroom. However, this amendment would specifically permit it only under these qualifying requirements. And then finally, or not finally, excuse me, the next one, 2861, has to do with parking requirements. Currently, at the commission's discretion in this zone, you could reduce the parking to 1.5 parking spaces per unit. What they're proposing for developments qualifying as a Fairfield Housing Authority Pine Tree development is that they be permitted, the parking requirement would be 1.15 parking spaces per unit. There was a question at the hearing, similar 830G applications we've had have been relatively close. One of them that are being constructed right now are at 1.25 parking spaces per unit. Finally, section 31-243 is the definition and basically would create a development of dwelling units located on Pine Tree Lane consistent of only 1 or 2 bedroom units conforming to the requirements of affordable housing development as defined in section 830G of the Connecticut statutes. Why that's important, as I mentioned to you before, is that specifically identifies the area that these particular amendments would adhere to. There is no other area that any of these amendments would adhere to other than this particular piece of property. And again, the reason, and it was passed, and the reason given at the meeting of why this is being requested is because they feel it may inhibit federal, state, and local financing of the property. Last thing I'll say is just so there's no misunderstanding, this is not a zone change application. It's a zone amendment application to our design residence district regulation. The use in and of itself, residential multifamily, is permitted in this zone, in the design residence district, but the permit to be approved would have to be subject to the amendments that are requested. Although because it is an 830G, you have in the past, and the statute does seem to indicate that you can approve 830G application site plan only. And again, that was a question brought up at the hearing, and I'll only reiterate the explanation was that if the amendments, albeit specific to the property, if they were not, even though you could approve just the site plan, it would inhibit federal, state, and local financing. Last thing I'll mention, the findings for an amendment are very similar to what you would look at when you're looking at a zone change, somewhat reduced, only because we're not talking about a zone change of property, it's just an amendment to your current regulations. Again, they would have to show some consistency to your plan of conservation development. They would also would not want to create any circumstances in the neighborhood that would change substantially merit. I'm sorry, that's the zone change. I'm sorry. It has to be demonstrated that proposed zone amendments are warranted and would serve the general health, welfare, and safety of the town of Fairfield. That essentially are the findings for an amendment for regulations that the statutes require.
Two requirements.
I'm sorry, and also the time and experience also. Responsible planning indicates the need for the zone amendments. Those three.
All right.
Which come from the statutes that enable you to amend your regulations. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, and that's on item I. We have, let's see, let's just go down the line. Commissioner Barrett's, there was only, well, there were 2 hearings. So,
We're all on this one.
we're all on and we've all attended all of the meetings, right? Okay. And what's the,
Coleman's on one. Jackie, you on this?
It's on the table.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no,
Okay.
yeah.
so everyone present is on and everyone has either been attended the hearings or listened to the tapes?
4 votes would be required.
4. 4 out of 6.
It's been all on.
Well, these are on.
Yeah,
big-
it would be recorded.
How big did you say the entire site was?
Again, the entire site, give me a minute. I made a mess over here. Sure.
Go ahead, and I'll,
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion
It's
to approve.
3.075 acres.
hold on a
I'm
second.
sorry.
3.05 acres?
3.075 acres.
Thank you. Commissioner Barron?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I would say, I would want to make a motion that we, for discussion, approve items I and J, realizing we have to vote on them separately, but this is opposite of what ones we just had. I think we need to discuss them together. We can't really discuss item I in a vacuum with item J, as opposed to ones where people were asking for a zone change and then a special permit that wouldn't comply. This is a different application. So I would suggest we discuss them together. So I would
I
move,
rescind my motion, you make the motion?
I would just move, you move to approve, I would just say we move to approve I and J together.
Well, we need to do a call.
Second.
I need, so
Yeah.
motion on the table to consider both I and J together.
I second that.
Motion made by Barrett, seconded by Alessi.
The only
Yes.
comment I would make is when you go to actually act on these things, you
Yes.
have to do that.
Yep.
separately.
Consider,
Yeah.
yeah, no, consider, the motion on the table is for us to consider and deliberate on the items together. We'll vote on them separately. Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion?
You want to go?
No, I gotta do the call, and we need a summary of the second item. We haven't had that yet, have we?
Yeah, you have.
Oh, you summarized
Yeah,
it together.
basically, the outline was
whole
the
thing.
initial one, and as I mentioned to you, the
Okay.
amendments very specifically define, I
Got it.
think.
You
what-
went back through the amendments
Yep,
after,
yep.
got it. Okay, so all in favor of considering the items together signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? All right, so motion is carried unanimously to consider them all together. So, can we deliberate now and then
Yeah.
move separately on each?
Yeah, because I'm assuming you're going to have, you can't, you're not required, you're not permitted to have conditions of approval for the amendments.
Right.
Either approve them or you're not. But if you get to the site plan itself, you probably may have conditions of approval
Yeah,
for that.
well,
So
certain
that's why you have to do
conditions
two
came up.
separate actions. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right, so we can talk about them all together. Who wants to go first?
Want to go? Want to go?
Commissioner Alessi,
Well, I was just going to say,
Vice Chair Alessi.
I support this application. I support the zoning change amendment and the 15 Pine Tree Lane. I think it's a really nice 830G application, one that really makes sense. I know there was some discussion from the neighbors behind them about a second-story building, but after looking on the map and driving around, it seems 3 of the 4 houses are all second-story buildings. So that, to me, didn't make any sense. Or the person along the entranceway by the clubhouse, considering that there's 15-foot lot lines on both sides of that house. So I think they really did a nice job on this site plan. Are we going to discuss site plans now as well, too?
Yeah.
Because the only thing I had on the site plan, as was discussed, in front of Building 1 is the front 2 parking spots.
So we're gonna make a
Take a
turnaround.
non-parking zone,
Yes.
specifying a non-parking zone, and picking up the 2 other parking lots in front of between Building 6 and 8. That will be it.
Right,
So we're going to
so,
remove the 4 parking spots altogether in front of Building 1,
well,
closest to the building. And I'd hoped, and I'd like to get a revised site plan showing that as one of the conditions of approvals on this. So we have 1, 2, 3, and 4. Well, this one's open anyway.
yeah, so on the,
Creating a hammerhead turnaround.
right, on the northwest corner, right here, those are not parking spaces. That was actually a designed turnaround area.
So,
Okay. So
So you
what,
wouldn't have to limit that.
we
No,
eliminate
the two parking spots then
on the
The red and blue.
southwest
the south corner.
corner of building one.
It's-
Building one.
It's the south corner in front of Building 1, eliminating those 2 parking spaces and adding those parking spaces back in between Buildings 6 and 8 along the entrance to Building 9.
Other than that, I think it's a great application. I think the Housing Authority did a great job of moving people around so nobody's displaced out of their homes while this is taking place as well. So I urge everybody to support this application.
Okay. Commissioner Jacobs.
I will support this application. I think it's incredibly well done. I'm excited that we're going to have affordable housing there, and I will vote for it.
I vote for it.
Thank you, Commissioner Coleman.
Seems well-designed. It's a bit dense, but at least they've got the parking, 62 spaces. That's pretty good for 50 units.
Commissioner Barrett.
Yeah, I mean, the application itself needs to be approved, the law is clear. Just because Fairfield Housing Authority is the applicant doesn't change the criteria that we use.
No.
You know, conformity with regulations is not one, density is not one. I think, you know, I really have to applaud the applicant too. This could have been for a lot more. I don't know if the neighbors and people realize it, that we were debating, a 2-story building. I really personally wasn't shocked by a 2-story building, but they could put a 4-story building. They could put a 10-story building if they could demonstrate that they're not going to jeopardize a substantial public interest and health or safety. So I think it's relatively modest. It's more dense than we normally allow for designed residential, but it could have been a lot more dense, and I think it's good. It also satisfies a need for affordable housing. I think Mr. Barnhart and Ms. Martin, Mr. Leclerc, the presentation was very good in terms of this. This is not just affordable housing that we're going to recognize as a good thing. The state recognized this in its criteria. This is all what the statute's intended to do, so I'd support it. Speaking on the amendments, well, I wanted to take them together. If we're going to support them, I would have liked to have heard during a lot less presentation about some things we talked about that may not have been, and then at the very end, I think it was just kind of thrown in rebuttal about, oh yeah, we really need those. We didn't hear anything about that. I would just say I'm generally opposed to this. I'm opposed to putting, by definition, an 830G application does not have to conform to our regulations. We have 10 spots in our regulations that reference a pine tree development, just so this will conform, that has no planning applicability to anything else. Yeah, there's no risk, it doesn't hurt it, but I just don't like it. I don't see the necessity. If it's a matter of funding and the project being in jeopardy, I'll have to support it, but typically I don't see the need to change our regulations to support these applications when, by definition, they don't have to conform to our regulations. If it was something that was like, oh yeah, this is going to be a good idea and this will encourage what we feel is valuable, affordable housing development, I'd say yes, but this doesn't do anything other than just legitimize this development for regulations that it doesn't have to conform to. So I'm a little ambivalent about this, but I certainly don't want to risk the project if that was what was presented.
Yeah. I mean, anyone else? I'm gonna let everybody say their piece before I jump in. No, I agree. I mean, that's why I asked, I just start where you left off. That's why I asked about the regulation amendments, because if we do approve the regulation amendments, then it doesn't even need to be an 830G application, does it? Because if we approve the regulation amendments, then it would be in conformity with our regulations, and they wouldn't have to avail themselves of a state statute to deviate from our regulations.
I don't know if that's totally correct. I think because of the type of housing and the funding that would be available, I think it needs to be identified as an 830G. That's how we get our points systems. So
Well, it's not necessarily an 830G application by which points are calculated, because there are other structures and things which count in terms of points that are not 830G
Right,
applications. What counts under the point system, as I understand it, is having an affordability plan and actually complying with certain thresholds and limitations for income requirements for the purposes of rental of those units.
I only mentioned that because the criteria for point, the determination of points is in that section, 830G. That's where it comes from.
Well, I understand that,
Yeah.
but,
I understand.
you know,
Yeah.
so that was my struggle there with that. Secondly, I agree with the comments that seem to be uniform about the design of the overall development. I note that this is fewer units than applications that we have previously denied on a parcel of land which is, in one case, 3 times the size, and in another case, 6 times the size?
Pretty close.
Pretty close to 6 times the size, with fewer number of units. They're sort of townhouse style, with attractive roof lines, porches, parking
Community center.
adjacent to the entrances, facilities for each unit. I mean, as a general matter, I think it was an excellent design and approach to the whole thing. And as Commissioner Barrett said, if some folks stopped and thought about what could have been, it's pretty remarkable what's been done here. There are a number of things that we talked about at the public hearing, though, that I think we ought to think about and talk about in terms of tweaking the site plan. A buffer of trees on the northwest property line. I think evergreens were mentioned. There seems to be an awful lot of fencing that runs all over the buildings and in the backyards of the porches and all that. I mean, I never really got clarity on the extent to which conservation was requiring that fence.
The split rail?
Yeah, the split rail.
Oh, that sounded required by, I believe Attorney Leclerc said it was required by conservation.
Well, certain, did you get clarification on that?
Well, I mean, what I have is pretty much what was described to you at the hearing. They even admitted it may be overdone. The requirement for the split rail was in fact a Conservation Commission requirement to demarcate an area between the regulated area and the developed area. The question was, well, do you need all the fencing that's proposed? And really the answer was somewhat, we may have overstated. So I would, if we were going to have a condition of approval having to do not only with the screening but the fencing, that it would basically read, and also with the additional landscaping, that any additional landscaping proposed be subject to wetland, not inhibiting the wetland issues, which is easy to
Discretion.
find out. Right. And the second thing about the fencing is that your condition of approval is, you're recommending that only the amount of fencing that's absolutely necessary to meet the conditions of,
Minimally needed.
which could be confirmed very simply with
Right.
a review of a revised plan.
So there are really three areas where I think that buffers are necessary. It's along the fence line on the northwest line, and it's on the southwest line where the residential properties are, and also adjacent to Building 9 where the property borders another residential area. I don't have the address. It's the east, the property line that is,
Northeast corner.
yeah, the northeast corner. No, the eastern corner. East.
Where the community center is?
Yeah, adjacent to the community center. Now, you know, if some of this is in regulated areas, they may not be able to provide
It's okay.
any buffer
I think
at
your
all.
condition you read, you're requiring it subject to any inland wetland stipulation. So I think that'll be that'll be their responsibility in revising their landscaping plan to have that checked by them, but we will make sure that that's done. And
Can we require them to do anything they can to get accommodation from the conservation if
No,
that's
you can't,
possible?
you can't condition another board's authority. I think.
No, I don't want to condition their authority, but maybe they didn't ask for this because it's not on the plan. But maybe if they asked for these things, then conservation would.
I think the area of land requested additional landscaping is specific enough. I think they'll be able to identify that on the site plan. Frankly, I don't know that the wetland's going to have an issue with that. My point is, if you just leave a proviso, frankly, you wouldn't even have to do that, but I think if we just leave a proviso in your condition, that if it does infringe on the regulated area, it's not permitted anyway, regardless of what we say. So I say just give your requirement for condition for screening, and then it would be subject to, needless to say, wetlands saying yes or no, but the same thing with the split-level fence. Your condition is please eliminate any fencing that is not absolutely required by conservation, the intent of the Conservation Commission. At that point, you'll be able to identify exactly what that's supposed to be.
Okay. So, yeah, and this, well, right now, we're just in discussion. We're not even, we haven't even made a motion to approve at this point. And hopefully Joe's taking good notes.
We have recording, I got 20 recordings going at one time.
So, what I don't know if I said this before, but I want to say it. If I'm repeating myself, so be it. The fact that the density here is so much less than those in other 830Gs that we've seen makes the issue of the parking ratio much different than in other applications. You know, I have in the past spoken against ratios which were a little bit higher than this even, but still, in my opinion, didn't provide enough parking and flow for the proposal and for the area. And the reason that this does is because of the approach taken to develop the whole parcel, because it's over 3 acres, it's townhome style with an access drive and parking that's adjacent to the units, and I think it works.
Mr. Commissioner?
Yes.
I don't really follow that line of thought.
Well, the issue with regard to the density of the development on a parcel and having the areas for traffic flow and for parking, it creates a more a fluid environment. I mean, it just even just looking at the site plan, as opposed to a building on stilts where the parking is congested and crowded with aisle widths that are 11 feet wide and where people can't move around.
I totally agree, but the question is do we really believe that most of these units are going to have just one car in the family? That makes 1.15 work, because there isn't a place for them to go if their average number of cars is more than 1.15, where do they park them?
Well, there is on-street parking. I found the testimony of some of the residents compelling. Some of it was a little inconsistent. Some residents were complaining that there were lots of cars parked on the street, and therefore you had to kind of, I think somebody said a slalom at times. And then others testified that cars just come whizzing by, and the police and the fire, and there are just cars barreling through there all the time. Well, if there are cars always parked so congested on the street that you have to do a slalom, they can't exactly be, barreling by all the time. I visited the area. I didn't find there to be congestion in the street, and there are 38 units there now
Of senior housing.
of senior housing. Yeah.
It will
Well,
be different when it's affordable,
Well, 38 of those seniors are going to be there.
for a while.
Yeah.
Well, the folks on the waiting list right now are also
All
seniors.
seniors,
yeah.
And the waiting list is over 100 people.
109 people. Did we get an affirmative answer that they are going to be the next
We did.
applicants?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. She said that they couldn't make a guarantee, but it was their intention to go to the list of the waiting list first. That's my recollection.
That's
Do
the
you-
impression I got, yeah.
Is that?
That's correct.
That's correct, right? I mean, I don't, that they can't guarantee it, but it's their intention to
No,
go
but
to
I
the
mean,
waiting list
From a practical
first.
standpoint, that's what their market is right now.
Right.
Yeah, so that's absolutely right.
Yeah. So,
That'll be good.
all right. Commissioner Barrett?
Right, I mean, I'm always concerned about parking, but there was no demonstration that the parking would be inadequate, or even that it was, that there wasn't alternative. I mean, there was concern about parking on the street, but that is not the kind of evidence we need to say that there's some substantial public safety issue
Right.
with this application. And Commissioner Francis is right. Today, they have a lot less parking spaces than 1.15, but it's all seniors, so they don't even use the one that they have. Yeah, I mean, they might. I think it's how many spaces is it, 60?
62.
They have 30, there's 36 there now, I believe they're the 62 spaces.
62, so 50 for 62, and that is,
It's not too bad.
and it's mostly one bedroom, so you're right, there's no guarantee that it'll only be one out. You can have one bedroom, you can still have two cars, and you could have one bedroom and you could have no cars. So it's where it averages out. 1.15 isn't that far from some other things that actually have been improved. I think, some of the ones were denied, there were specific concerns about that
And
site.
at least there's good flow here for when people want to move in, when the repair people have to come. We had such problems with that in some of our other ones. Just no vehicle to move.
Yeah. So, was there, I always had the concern about the 40-year thing in the affordable housing plan. I always wonder why, because it's the minimum. I asked the applicant that at the hearing.
Yeah, they said it's funding.
Right, that for whatever reason the state requires that. And I wanted them to, all right. So we did get comment about the plan, that 830G requires the description of the projected sequence in which, within the set-aside, the affordable dwelling units will be built and offered for occupancy, and the general location of such units within the proposed development.
100%.
Right, and that was going to be my comment. I want the plan to be acceptable for a number of reasons. Funding, number one. Make sure that it's accepted by the state and that we get credit for all the units. But I think that the sequence within the set-aside is meant to relate where you have market rate units and affordable housing, affordable rate units, because in that circumstance, there may be some discrepancy between the quality of the market rate units as opposed to the affordable units, right? And so the statute is trying to require that the plan even those out, even the distribution out for all of those. And so, you know, I looked at the plan, thank you for giving me this, because I just didn't have that, because I looked at the plan with respect to that, to try to make sure that, you know, the concern was handled in some way, or if it wasn't, that we couldn't approve it. But in my view, it does comply because all of the units are affordable in nature, and there's no concern. Right? Were there any other concerns raised with regard to the plan?
I don't have any. I touched on the landscaping screening, wetland demarcation, rail fences, parking, driveway, turnaround adjustments.
Right.
Yeah, it's pretty much,
We didn't hear anything about safety.
all the buildings are sprinkled. There is a fire plug proposed in the middle of it.
Right. We got, heard the testimony about the length and the fire hydrant that was installed, which is required, so that's there. The roadway width is wide enough to accommodate
It's 24
emergency vehicles.
plus the parking area. So you have a 24-foot wide
Right.
free access way.
And that's as a result of there being so much land on which to make such parking available.
Safety
Right,
issues.
okay. So, in order to vote, we need a motion to approve one or the other items. Are we done discussion? Are we finished with discussion?
Yep.
Somebody want to make a motion?
We're making a motion on I, no?
Yeah, we're gonna, we take I first.
Separately.
Yeah.
I make a motion to approve the zoning regulation amendments as discussed.
Second.
Motion to approve the zoning regulation amendments by Commissioner Alessi, seconded by Commissioner Jacobson. There are no conditions we can put on those.
I would just list the three findings that you're finding positively for the amendment, if you so act.
Right. Yeah, consistent with the plan of conservation and development, that there is a demonstrated and warranted need for the changes that benefits the public health and safety,
Yep.
and that time and experience indicate a need for the changes to the regulations. And I think that,
That's it.
based on the evidence in our deliberations, that all three of those are satisfied. Are we ready to vote?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm opposed.
The item carries by a vote of 5-1, presumably because you could. All right.
I make a motion.
Next item is J, 15 Pine Tree Lane, special permit application of Fairfield Housing Authority for construction of 50-unit affordable housing development pursuant to H30G of the general statutes.
I'm making a motion to approve with the following list of conditions: removal of split rail fence as much as possible, removal of 2 parking spaces marked as no, removal of 2 parking spaces in front of building 1 and mark those spaces as no parking fire zone, 2 additional parking spaces to be put in front of between buildings 6 and 8, extra tree screening where possible behind buildings number 3, 4, and 7, and to submit a revised site plan showing the change in the parking and the extra screening.
Can we add to that screening behind building 1?
Add extra screening behind building 1 if possible as well.
And did you talk about 9 as well?
No, because there's a walkway there.
No, that's a drainage. Oh, is a walkway.
It's a walkway.
Okay. All right. Motion's been made with conditions.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Francis. Anyone have anything further to discuss? I would urge you to add to your motion, recommend an amendment that as much screening or other landscaping as can be provided in between building 9. I understand, and to the extent that there can be other plantings to provide additional screening for the residential area that's adjacent to building 9.
Okay. Change it to,
That's the community center?
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
any additional screening between building 9 and the property line as well.
Okay. And Commissioner Francis, you accept
Yes.
the
Yes.
amendment? Okay.
There was some testimony about that.
Anyone else? All right, you ready to vote? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? The item, as moved with conditions, passes unanimously. No other items on the agenda. I will adjourn the meeting.